laughingly. "I don't believe that," rejoined Anne. "I'm like the Irishman who said he wished the man who begun work had stayed and finished it." "Well, is it decided that Bev is to be the editor?" asked Felix. "Of course it is," Felicity answered for everybody. "Then," said Felix, "I move that the name be The King Monthly Magazine." "That sounds fine," said peter, hitching his chair a little nearer Felicity's. "But," said Cecily timidly, "that will leave out Peter and the Story Girl and Sara Ray, just as if they didn't have a share in it, and I don't think that would be fair." "You name it then, Cecily," I suggested. "Oh." Cecily threw a deprecating glance at the Story Girl and Felicity. Then, meeting the contempt in the latter's gaze, she raised her head with unusual spirit. "I think it would be nice just to call it Our Magazine," she said. "Then we'd all feel as if we had a share in it." "Our Magazine it will be then," I said. "And as for having a share in it, you bet we'll all have a share in it. If I'm to be editor, you'll all have to be sub-editors and have charge of a department." "Oh, I couldn't," protested Cecily. "You must," I said inexorably. "England expects everyone to do his duty. That's our motto, only we'll put Prince Edward Island in place of England. There must be no shirking. Now, what departments will we have? We must make it as much like a real newspaper as we can." "Well, we ought to have an etiquette department then," said Felicity. "The Family Guide has one." "Of course we'll have one," I said, "and Dan will edit it." "Dan!" exclaimed Felicity, who had fondly expected to be asked to edit it herself. "I can run an etiquette column as well as that idiot in the Family Guide anyhow," said Dan defiantly. "But you can't have an etiquette department unless questions are asked. What am I to do if nobody asks any?" "You must make some up," said the Story Girl. "Uncle Roger says that is what the Family Guide man does. He says it is impossible that there can be as many hopeless fools in the world as that column would stand for otherwise." "We want you to edit the household department, Felicity," I said, seeing a cloud lowering on that fair lady's brow. "Nobody can do that as well as you. Felix will edit the jokes and the information bureau, and Cecily must be fashion editor." "Yes, you must, sis. It's easy as wink, and the Story Girl will attend to the personals. They're very important. Anyone can contribute a personal, but the Story Girl is to see there are some in every issue, even if she has to make them up, like Dan with the etiquette. Bev will run the scrapbook department, besides the editorials," said the Story Girl, seeing that I was too modest to say it myself. "Aren't you going to have a story page?" asked Peter. "We will, if you'll be fiction and poetry editor," I said. Peter, in his secret soul, was dismayed, but he would not blanch before Felicity. "All right," he said recklessly. "We can put anything we like in the scrapbook department," I explained, "but all the other contributions must be original, and all must have the name of the writer signed to them, except the personals. We must all do our best. Our magazine is to be a feast of reason and flow of soul." I felt that I had worked into quotations with striking effect. The others, with the exception of the Story Girl, looked suitably impressed. "But," said Cecily reproachfully, "haven't you anything for Sara Ray to do? She'll feel awful bad if she's left out." I had forgotten Sara Ray. Nobody except Cecily ever did remember Sara Ray unless she was on the spot. But we decided to put her in as advertising manager. That sounded well and really meant very little. "Well, we'll go ahead then," I said, with a sigh of relief that the project had been so easily launched. "We'll get the first issue out about the 1st of January, and whatever else we do, we mustn't let Uncle Roger get hold of it. He'd make such fearful fun of it." "I hope we can make a success of it," said Peter moodily. He had been moody ever since he was entrapped into being fiction editor. "It will be a success if we are determined to succeed," I said. "Where there is a will there is always a way." "That's just what Ursula Townley said when her father locked her in her room the night she was going to run away with Kenneth MacNair," said the Story Girl. We pricked up our ears, sensing a story. "Who were Ursula Townley and Kenneth MacNair?" I asked. "Kenneth MacNair was the first cousin of the Awkward Man's grandfather, and Ursula Townley was the belle of the island in her day. Who do you suppose told me the story? No, read it to me out of his brown book." "Never the Awkward Man himself?" I exclaimed incredulously. "Yes, he did," said the Story Girl triumphantly. "I met him one day last week in the maple woods when I was looking for ferns. He was sitting by the spring, writing in his brown book. He hid it when he saw me and looked really silly, but after I had talked to him a while I just asked him about it and told him that the gossip said he wrote poetry in it, and if he did, would he tell me, because I was dying to know. He said he wrote a little of everything in it, and then I begged him to read me something out of it, and he read me the story of Ursula and Kenneth." "I don't see how you ever had the face," said Felicity, and even Cecily looked as if she thought the Story Girl had gone rather far. "Never mind that," cried Felix, "but tell us the story. That's the main thing." "I'll tell it just as the Awkward Man read it, as far as I can," said the Story Girl. "But I can't put all his nice poetical touches in, because I can't remember them all, though he read it over twice for me." End of Chapter 1. A New Departure.